straight off if we can. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Debbie Finn, and I'm the Global Travel Practice Leader for Finn Partners. We are a US-based marketing and communications industry, and I lead travel practice. And this is the first time that I moderated the panel in the Extreme Hangout, and I thought this was a particularly important topic to tackle today. And the Extreme Hangout is all about galvanizing passion and support from the 8 billion imperfect environmentalists and educating you to care more about holiday in a sustainable way, which in turn will put pressure on us as an industry and our governments to legislate and incentive a more climate-friendly travel industry. So my panel today combined a mix of experienced and aged, as we all need to be part of the discussion. True. The oldest.
Yeah.
But I think it's as much about a mindset as a generational one. So I'm going to start off by introducing the panel. To my left here, Inge Fibrecht, who's the Chief Sustainability and Security Officer for Radisson Hotel Group. She's also the Vice Chair of the World Sustainable Hospitality Alliance, and she has been in the travel industry for many years, but she's also been in other sectors before that, so brings a really interesting perspective on responsible tourism. And next to her is Glenn Mandick, and he is the CEO of the World Sustainable Hospitality Alliance. They are a trade charity responsible for hospitality in a better world, which you'll hear more about as we go through the session. On the other side is Anna Nuttall, who is in fact the Sustainability Director for Extreme Hangout, and she is the founder of Extreme Hangout and the brave shop of everything that you see here, and is somebody that I'm really excited to have on our panel today. And then last but not least is Javon, who is a Bahamas Climate Youth Ambassador, and he's a Rhodes Scholar, study at Oxford, having been in Minnesota University, and has got a fantastic perspective on some of the things that we're going to talk about today. And by the way, I will say that we are not in the business of use washing here. And this is an expression I only learned yesterday from being a cop, which we will touch on as we go through the panel. This week, you heard much about the importance of intergeneration collaboration, and you very much, as I say, got this represented on the stage today. So let me start with plastic straws, which is the headline of our panel. Where is the next plastic straw movement going to come from? This movement really started in 2011 when a 9-year-old child from Milo told the world that there were 500 million straws a day being used in the US. And then, of course, we had the big movement and outcry globally, really, that when a turtle was photographed with a plastic straw, these straw, caught at Mosbury in 2015. And since then, we've seen country by country and stores and single-use plastic, and obviously huge reaction from different sectors of the travel industry. So today we are going to talk about, have we gone far enough? I was actually chatting to a journalist last week who talked about being in a coffee bar in Georgia in the US, and he was offered the choice of a plastic or a case straw. And when he asked why he was being offered a plastic straw, he was told that there were some people in the region that thought only being offered creaker was too woke. So we're not actually there yet. I'm going to ask each panelist their views on why the public played such an important role in this major step change, and also how they personally feel about where we really are right now. So Inge, can I start with you? Sure. Measure? Where you do we really are right now?
Okay. First, I wanted to say that I would love to count myself in the youth stage, but I think you're a bit, so it's not the case, but you're a bit hard to do. So where are we? I think, for a company like Radisson, so we have about 1,400 hotels around the world. There's a couple of things that are really important. We've been doing sustainability since '89. We have Scandinavian origins, so that's where the commitment and the early commitment came from. We've always tried to make sustainable stays easy. So we've always, on one hand, tried to make sure that whenever someone books a room or has a meeting with us, that it's easy. And that we make it easy for them. And for example, we have combined our towel reuse and green housekeeping program with donations to water projects around the world. So it's an easy choice for the guests and it does some good around the world. We also do that with our meetings. So when a meeting comes to us, we make sure that the whole meeting is calm and neutral, easy. So that's one big thing. The other big journey, and that's why we're all here at COP29, is mitigating and adapting to climate change. And that's a far, far harder thing to do. So as a company, we are committed to become net zero by 2050.
And I will admit here that we don't exactly know all the answers on how to get there. But we are doing some things. We are doing things in our company, like having more renewables, making sure that the buildings we operate as a company are more green, making sure that our 75,000 team members around the globe know what it means to go to net zero and do the right things in their day jobs and at home. We're not there yet, but we have reduced our carbon emissions by 35% compared to 2019. Now, to answer your question, I think what we need is collaboration, and that's something Glenn can talk about. And what we need is speed and scale, so we need to be bold. So that's actually something I would love to get from the young generation, is how can we be bold? How can we be bold in what we do? And how can we make sure we do things on the supply side, which is the hotels and the travel companies and the destinations, but also on the demand side.
Well, picking up on that, Inga, yeah, you're right. It's all about collaboration and working together. But before I start, it's a big honor to be here in Azerbaijan. And I really I think the real effort that Azerbaijan has done to bring us together in this conversation is part of the solution, right? That's when the real action, and we're having meetings outside this room with other organizations, and that's where the catalytic effort comes into play. I have the opportunity to, sorry, sir. Oh, you can't hear me? Oh, is that what it is? Sorry. I have the opportunity to sit on a number of other boards. And I like to have a drum roll when I talk about this. So it's really, really cool. So thank you for that introduction. So I have the opportunity to be on a number of other boards outside of tourism and hear what people's perception of our sector is, and particularly from the financial community. And they have stated very clearly to me, they figure we have a lot of work to do, and that in fact we're not taking this seriously in their mind, and they're putting their money elsewhere, and we don't even know it. So there's probably two truths to this. There is a lot of action going on from very strong leaders in the hospitality space, and then there's just a lot of inaction from our industry to actually make the progress necessary. And so we have a lack of storytelling around this area. We feel that there's a lot more actually going on, and the stories that Inga just referenced is not cutting through to the audiences that we need to get this to, so we can actually showcase our effort. And we need to inspire the industry to rise to new heights. And the World Sustainable Hospitality Alliance, together with its partners, and there are numerous partners, all full of acronyms, by the way, that are striving to be net positive hospitality. So this is really rising above this idea of net zero and simply sustainability, but actually positioning the industry in a more regenerative way. And why I'm suggesting that, why this is important, that since adopting that framework and that focus, we've grown 400% of those at the table that want to be involved in this discussion. So I'm very optimistic about where you think the state of play is, very optimistic about where we are, because more players are coming quickly. There's a real sense of the urgency is finally in front of us. And there's obviously a significant commitment that's happening that wasn't happening even 2 years ago, for that matter. And so we have a lot of work to do, no question about it. But I'm much more optimistic now that we can actually make some bold outcomes.
That's really good to hear. I'm not sure. Amber, are you going to be so optimistic? I know Amber.
I am an optimist, always, just by nature anyway, generally. But I think that we do need more bold action. We can't always look to young people for them to come up with the solutions. We need to step up and lead, and where I feel the older generations, and particularly large corporates, need to get to is actually putting their money where their mouth is. We know that finance shifts the dial, and we need people to invest in all of our futures, not just theirs. Of course, the majority of the future that lies ahead is for the younger people, but for all of our sake. There's a lot of conversations that happen at COP. There's a lot of conversations that happen everywhere. We need to start delivering the finance which is going to enable people to action, or to take action. I think that the hospitality industry is just a wonderful space to lead this, because there's so much happiness associated with taking holidays and travel. As a species, we love to roam around, and we're curious about other peoples and cultures and nature and all the beauty of this extraordinary planet that we live on. But we need to be responsible when we travel. And the reality is, of course, and I'm sure Joanna's going to touch on this as well, there are a lot of places that are deeply affected by tourism. I mean, I know that the Canary Islands got slammed recently because they suddenly turned around and said they didn't want the British people to go and visit them anymore. And I'm like, do you blame them? Seriously? And I'm British. I'm like, I get it. I totally get it. So we need to look internally a little bit more. But as an industry, and I used to work in the hotel space. I used to be a chef as well. And I love all of what travel and the adventure side of all of this brings. But most of all, I love that it brings people together. But we have to be able to do better. And I'm excited because people love hearing from great brands within the hospitality sector. They're wonderful storytellers. And I would love to see them lead even more in this.
Thank you. Now, Javon, where do you think we are now? Amber's talking about finance now. I know you've been in a number of quite heavy meetings that actually connect finance to the future. So where do you think we are, and why do you think the public pressure from the...
Right, so I'll start by saying that I think at the heart of what everyone has said so far is community, and I'm a big champion of community building. And I think what Amber was really getting at just now is this idea of an intergenerational dialogue. So we need to move away from this positioning of it's this generation, that generation, the future, the present, the past, and realize that we're all human beings, we're all attached to this earth, we all impacted and influences, and in order to come up with the appropriate solutions, we all have to be thinking and working and generating ideas together. And so that intergenerational connectivity is what I think is the bold action that we need to see. I think it responds to the need, and I want to be a champion of that, which is why I'm here on this panel. To speak to the question, I do think that where we are at now is not far enough along, and where we are at now is also looking to the future where time is running out. Particularly for my people and my islands, we continuously see the devastation. I mean, I'm sharing a film and screening here later on this evening, and you'll see if you stick around for that the Bahamas has experienced true devastation with Hurricane Dorian in 2019, and it decimated 2 major islands, and over 70,000 people lost their homes, and that is a reality that is forever attached to our history, attached to our cultural heritage. And what we need is for our world's leaders, what we need is for the people who benefit from the beauty of our islands to take responsibility, to hold themselves accountable, to not put the burden on us to lead them along the way, but to encourage us and include us in the conversation of how they're going to respond to what they can see and know as a wrong and an injustice to the people that live in my islands. So I think that's where we are at now. To speak to how the second part of the question about the public pressure, I think public pressure has such a, and I would call it people power. It has such a power and momentum to move the world, to make magnificent change in the world, and it always does. But it doesn't always start in the masses of people coming together. It starts with one person deciding that this is wrong. That one person may be a 6-year-old girl. And I'm thinking about my Commonwealth Secretary General when I say this, who shared a story with me today of how at 6 years old, she recognized the injustice going on in South Africa, and she spoke to her father. And her father asked her, "What are you, my daughter, going to do about this?" And she has done the work up to today and continues to do it, to respond to those sort of injustices, to respond with action, to respond with opportunity, to respond with guidance for young people to get engaged. And so I think that the reason why that power and that public pressure has had such an effect is because when people recognize injustice, it's in our nature to want to do something about it. And the more of us that encourage others or expose others to the injustices going on in our world, the more that power can amass and we can see change. Thank you.
Thank you. Feel free to clap. But of course, it's not all about plastic, is it? Which is how we've started talking. What other plans are there? And I think at the same time, while we're on the subject of hotels, it would be good to hear a little bit more from you as one of the founders of the Hotel Sustainability Basics program. Florian, actually in Azerbaijan, you were one of the first destination adopters of this, which is very much about trying to help small and medium-sized businesses, they make up 80% of the global travel industry. These are the small hotels that maybe, haven't got the might of a hotel group like Radisson behind them, that need to know where do they start on their journey. So I think it'd be good to hear a little bit about both of those, if we may.
Okay, thank you. We heard very interestingly, I think, Amber, you said it, we need to put our money where our mouth is. And that's it. We're all consumers. We're all travelers. Right? Don't be a tourist in your destination, be a traveler. Understand your destination, be part of it, and contribute it in a positive way. So on that, we wanted to make sure with a number of hotel companies, Radisson was one of them, and some destinations like Azerbaijan came on board very, very quickly to say, what if we could define a standard that is a starting step for all hotels, whether they're big or small, whether they're independent or part of a company, to say, we do these 12 essential sustainability actions, because it's all about the actions, that are verified, that are checked by somebody so they can be trusted by the consumer. And then the hotel gets a label. And from there, they move on and they become better. And the whole idea is, I used to work for Toyota, so the Kaizen idea of always getting better and better, but starting somewhere, is a very important one. And we did this collectively. So we had an idea with a couple of people at an event somewhere. We managed to have the CEOs behind it. And in the end, we launched it with 70 partners representing destinations and 50,000 hotels. It's in progress. A lot of hotels get the stamp. Some of our hotels here have the label of Hotel Sustainability Basics. And why is this important? It's important because it can drive consumer choice. Because a lot of the studies, and there's plenty, say that people want to book responsibly or responsible travel when they travel, but they just don't do it. And why don't they do it? Because it's not clear to them what labels can be trusted. And so that brings it full circle to say, we created something that is making a change in India, that is making a change in China, that is making a change in destinations around the world, because it works and it can be trusted. And that's what we did with Hotel Sustainability Basics, because I really believe that we shouldn't leave anyone behind. I mean, we can talk about net zero, but I'll tell you honestly, in our portfolio of 1,400 hotels, when I talk to some of our hotels, and they are owned by real estate owners, and I talk to them, they are franchisees sometimes, and I say net zero, and they look at me as if I'm from another planet, really. So to bring them along, to have action, we need to make it tangible. And that's what we did with Hotel Sustainability Basics. So this is one of the things we did, and one of the things that is maybe not bold, but at least it's global, and it's something that everyone can do and that can be trusted. And when we have people on the train, as I always say, then they can't jump off. When we have a hotel that reached that first level, then they can get better, and they can do a full eco label, and then they can get better, and they can really talk about net zero. And one day maybe about net positive, we'll see. But the point is, we bring everybody along with that. And that's one of the things that we did. And we are also rolling it out in Radisson. I mean, we're doing eco labels, but we're also doing Hotel Sustainability Basics, because it's a trusted, verified.
Thank you. And Glenn, you have, I think, over half of the hotel rooms in the world as your members. And it would be really good to know a couple of things. One, what other initiatives you've seen from members that you want to applaud, and also whether you're able to give us a hint of the next big step that you're going to be announcing on our first ever Tourism Day tomorrow here at COP29.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, you know, net positive is a bold statement. And the way we think about, you know, really pushing, standing out in the crowd of economic sectors that are all still maybe talking about net zero or simply sustainability is really important for us when we start changing the narrative. And this is about our industry being seen as a contributor to the destination for which we have the privilege to operate within. It's a privilege for our industry to be here in Baku. And it's what are we doing collectively to contribute to the destination? So hitting a net positive position is not just about the infrastructure. I mean, it's really about a more broader philosophical approach to how we do business. And I'm building on what you just talked about, the basics, and we're very proud to say, and I say this here, is that the Alliance is co-investing in the Basics Plus, in the next step in building on the 12 and moving people along the pathway to net positive is just helping the journey towards some level of certification, perhaps, but ultimately into a net positive position. So that is coming, as you know, Inga. And so it's very exciting to see that happen. And again, this is the industry coming together. And so when we talk about this, when we think about it, there's a lot of action going on individually in nature positive, for example, contributions to, you know, shoreline and coral reef restoration and tree planting and those kind of things in key areas. There's a lot of investment in, you know, energy transition initiatives within the building to really reduce. There's a lot of innovation going on there, quite frankly. Interesting work on food waste in particular parts of the industry, where some hotels have zero food waste, completely zero. Everything that comes in is completely utilized in the property, and there's nothing going to landfill sites. So there's a lot of key learnings that we can learn and then share with others, because part of this is a seeing is believing exercise. In order to get those asset owners or property managers or general managers or chefs or whoever is holding back the progress to understand the opportunity, is they actually have to see it in action. And so those pioneers that we have in the membership and outside the membership that are doing that, we're really capturing their story. We have now an awards program, the World Travel Awards on sustainability and hospitality and tourism, helps capture those stories because, again, not knowing that makes it very difficult to see the transition happen. And your second part, and one of the very important things if we are to actually make progress, we have to actually measure progress the same way, no matter where you are in the world, and so that we can actually collectively roll up an understanding of our industry's progress in a transparent way, in a coordinated way, which currently doesn't exist. The data is not as, it's good trend analysis, but it's not good hard analysis. And so tomorrow, we're very fortunate to be able to announce a real coming together within industry and our partner with UN Tourism and Travelist and others, where we have a complete agreement on measuring energy, water, waste, and carbon. And so this is the first time this has ever happened, and now we're very, very excited about having our first wave of indicators agreed to within industry, so that we can actually showcase, again, transparency, certification, verification in the data that we ultimately get across the industry. And we're very keen to actually then work with destination partners as well through UN Tourism to deliver on that. So part of the journey of our effort here that has held us back is we talk in acronyms, as I mentioned earlier. We talk in different words and how we define certain things across the sector. And you've got to wonder how an individual operator can actually be a part of this solution if we're talking over them in this effort. So we have to simplify, make sure the tools are digitized and reach scale. And so we're pretty excited about what tomorrow's offering. And again, I thank Azerbaijan to give us the framework and the stage, in essence, to actually showcase how industry is stepping up.
I think, yeah, it's going to be really, really big news. So excited about that. And you talk about nature positive. So Javon, you grew up in the Bahamas. You're from the Bahamas. Just tell us a little bit about how you were young and growing up when the whole plastic straw movement came about. How has any of that affected you from a personal perspective? And I think it'd be really good, we were talking earlier, to hear a little bit about the kind of the nature side of sustainability that you were touching on.
Yeah, of course. So I had a very close relationship with the natural world growing up in the Bahamas. Me and my cousins loved to roam. We would just go over the hill, go down to the beach, ramble through the bushes. And I think in terms of understanding and valuing that nature, that experience was guided by organizations like the Bahamas National Trust, which does amazing work back home in terms of conservation, but also in terms of environmental education. They really do the work of bringing students to the natural world and giving them an educational experience that is transformative, guides them in their understanding of what it is that we're trying to protect on the national and globally as a people wrestling with this climate crisis. And in my experience, I share this story quite often, I got sort of like the introduction to this educational experience of the Bahamas National Trust in the little kiddie tent, as they called it, during the citywide Lenten missions every year. And what they would do is they would have us all in this tent. They would get in there with like a TV screen and show us presentations, give out these booklets and sticker pamphlets, and really engage us in like trivia and give us treats and different things. But what they were really doing was preparing us, upskilling us, educating us to be the leaders we are today and to champion this message of hope and power within ourselves to galvanize this movement of climate action. Because as we grew, so did the problems, so did the hurricanes, so did disasters. And so we needed that foundational experience to empower us today to be able to respond to these challenges. And I think what the Bahamas is and what the Bahamas offers the world is more than just our beauty and the experience of our natural world. It is the strength and resilience of our people and our hospitality, which we are world famous for. And so I think my perspective here, I thank Debbie for bringing me on this panel. I think my perspective here is very valuable to the conversation of hospitality. And I also want to commend these actions happening in terms of the Hotel Sustainability Basics program and the metric and measurement program, because these are sort of the innovations that we want to see. And I think both of you talked about the idea of transparency and how that's a challenge within the industry and also between the industry and the public. And so I think that is one of the calls that we have in terms of what you can do, and that's to be more transparent and more ambitious, because what we want to see is our natural world to persist into the future, and so that we can all enjoy it together.
Thank you. And Amber, talking of growing up in the Bahamas, you were also lucky enough to grow up in the Bahamas as well as Switzerland. And I'd just love you to talk for a little bit about, we've touched on, you've spent some time working, I think, at the Connaught from a food perspective. So we touched a little on food waste here. Earlier, we all went to the Azerbaijan slow food presentation, which was fantastic. I'd love to hear your perspective from both nature and food. I mean, we were talking earlier and debating, you know, would there ever be, and there might be conflicting views here from the hospitality sector, would you ever see members of the public saying, do we need a buffet? You know, is that important? You know, is it important? So your perspectives, please.
Yeah, I love the buffet conversation because immediately I'm like, no, remove them immediately. But so many people in the who go to hotels, like they see that as like, wow, this is like, it's so sort of opulent. I've got so much choice, and that feels very much like part of the hotel experience. So I think hotels are terrified of the idea of removing the buffet, but it does create an enormous amount of food wastage. You refer to my time at the Connaught Hotel. I trained as a chef there, did an apprenticeship for nearly 4 years, and didn't matter what time of year it was, the VIP guests would arrive and the bottle of champagne would be sent to their room on ice with a bowl of strawberries. I used to sit and look at this bowl of strawberries and I'm like, who the hell wants to eat strawberries in December? Because by the way, strawberries in December, certainly strawberries in London in December, don't taste of anything. I'm like really not doing these people any favors whatsoever by giving them a bowl of strawberries. I mean, let's, slow food movement, seasonal food, all of that. I mean, come on. We're supposed to be the experts in the room. Why are we trying to get people to eat stuff which is totally not in season, it's not ripe, it doesn't taste of anything, zero nutritional value? We can do better than that, surely. That was one of my pet peeves when I worked at the Connaught. But just to go back to my broader experiences, as you've said as well, I was lucky enough to grow up, a part of my childhood growing up in the Bahamas, also in Switzerland as well. One of my favorite things about travel anywhere really is always the hotel experience. And the hotel experience is about your food. It's about where you lay your head. Hotels are they're so trusted. Well, you don't just go to sleep anywhere, right? You need to feel safe. You need to feel secure. It's your shelter, it's your warmth. They're going to nourish you as well. There's such a beautiful opportunity to build incredible relationships with people and connect them to the culture, to the heritage of the place they're at, which you've just alluded to as well. That for me is also a responsibility that I think I would love to see hotels take so much more. How many times do we walk into a hotel and you're like, I could be anywhere in the world right now, because there's no identity within that room that alludes to the beautiful, magical, totally unique part of our little blue planet that you happen to be in on that day. I want that individuality back, because that helps us as people to create that connection with that space. The fragrance when you walk into the room. Of course, your view. If you're lucky enough, you get the sea view. You've got to pay more for that, though, of course. It's about the food. It's about the art that's in there. Maybe it's the music. Everybody has the TV screens on now when you walk into the bedrooms and you're sort of getting all these messages and stuff. But I think we need to use some of that a little bit more responsibly as well, and get a little bit more creative around that side of it too. Because at the end of the day, the consumer is just another human. It's another friend. And it's another opportunity to help to share beautiful messages with. The much like when you arrive home, whether it's your own home, the home of a friend or other family member, a hotel's just really another extension of that. And I would like to see more of that come to life.
And I think this panel is very much talking about the consumer and the consumer of the future. And Yvonne, back to you. What do you think from your generation they're looking for from us in the global travel industry to allow you to still enjoy your holidays, but be able to choose to travel in a more sustainable way that doesn't necessarily maybe guilt trip you into it. Back to Inga's point about that kind of intention action gap in terms of the motivation is there emotionally, but actually if it's going to cost more money, what are people prepared to pay a little bit more for?
Yeah, so I am gonna start by maybe mentioning that I'm not a marketing student, but I'm sure in some marketing meeting somewhere, the question has been asked, why do people go on holiday, right? I think the question that people tend to get at is, what are they coming away from? And that helps you answer what they're looking for. And so I think for young people today, we're coming away from a lot. We're coming away from a lot of structure. Those things we can't just shrug off as we go and enjoy our experience somewhere, because quite often the places where we're intending to go are those most vulnerable and most impacted by the climate crisis. And so that experience of traveling has been changed. It's been disrupted in a way because we can't enjoy it as fully as we would like, because we don't see that the action is being done in that area to make it a truly enjoyable and safe and fulfilling experience as it should be. And I think you won't find a lot of young people who are going to tell you that they don't like to travel, that they don't enjoy going and places, meeting new people and experiencing new cultures. You will find many young people today who say that they want the planet to be safe for their future and other generations coming behind us. They want to see that leaders in various industries and globally make the commitments needed to respond to the challenges that we're facing as a global community. And I think that to speak to what we're asking for, I think, Inga, you mentioned that what you're doing, you have an opportunity where people can choose and you make it easy. That's what I was getting at. You make it easy for them to choose. I think the easiest choice is for them to just choose the Radisson, because they know that it is sustainable and it's meeting all. I don't think they have to go into this process of like, do I choose the sustainability package, or how green do I go? But if you go all the way, then your consumers, your customers will know that when they choose you, they're choosing the best option, and they can enjoy their travel experience with peace because they're doing their part, because you're doing yours.
And I think one of the other things we touched on was the importance of community experiences. And do we think that maybe the consumer will perhaps be prepared to pay a bit more if they know more of their money is staying in the local country that they're actually going to? So I think, you have a great people-to-people program, don't you, in the Bahamas, that does allow consumers to choose to genuinely add a local experience to their holiday experience.
Yeah, I think to take that sort of program further, is anyone doing a co-op hotel? Yeah, because I think having the community intimately involved in this experience, also making the decisions around how a hotel where every other room or every other villa is someone who just place. And sort of the community, the environment there is, as a visitor coming, you're living with the locals and they're involved in your experience. You don't have to plan a day out, because you're going to meet someone in the elevator and they're going to tell you there's this party happening. Do you want to come? So, do with that what you but I do think that having a more community-minded approach to everything that we do, not just in the hospitality industry, but to everything that we do on this planet, will take us a long way in the future and will bring us the climate justice that we so desperately need.
So one of the other questions I really wanted to ask in terms of influencing consumers? Do you think we need more celebrity sparkle, I've written down, to make messages more relatable to people at sort of any age? We heard yesterday here at Extreme Hangout, Liverpool Football Club were talking about their Redway Sustainable Programme and how they've got all the football players really behind it, and that is really influencing the fans globally of Liverpool to behave in a very different way. Amber, do you have views on celebrities?
And actually it touches on what Javon was just saying as well. In the extreme and adventure sports community, again, it's another community that is, you were talking about go on holiday to, I'm talking about the ones who are looking for an activity. And these are the activities they're choosing, and then that's the way they're looking to spend their money. It's the friends they're looking to go with and have these shared experiences with. And more often, if you're picking up your surfboard, you're going out onto the ocean, it's either full of plastic pollution or maybe there's a sewage issue there. And if you're a skier and you're going to the mountains and there's no snow left, or you're a hiker or whatever it is, and the glaciers have started disappearing off, again, they are also feeling this sense of, whoa, where have we got to? What's happening? And should we still be coming here? What is our impact? What's our footprint? And then, of course, what can we do about it? But there is that sense of peace of mind that I feel as well when I travel too. And by the way, tourists aren't just sun cream wearing, sort of buffet consuming sort of lounge lizards that are just looking for a sunbed somewhere. Again, they're real human beings. They want those real interactions. I love that thought that you just came up with there. One of the coolest holidays I was invited on was to go and tag bull sharks in Mozambique. Just so happens to be that's kind of my gig. For a lot of people, I can totally understand why that might not be within your comfort zone. But I mean, that would get me to travel halfway across the world, offset everything that I possibly could, and go and be part of the community, be part of a research project. We know you like to measure things, Glenn. I mean, yeah, so it's tying back into all of this. I got measurables that I can come back with from that one. And these real life, real action, you can help nesting turtles. That might be more your thing, more your pace. There are different things that we can do, and it's lovely now to be able to step out of the hotel environments and go get involved in local projects. Maybe, I don't know, looking after stray dogs is more your thing. There will be different projects that you can go and get involved in. And I think that will help to give travelers more of an authentic experience. It might give them that sense of peace that perhaps just lying on your sun lounger may not give you so much of anymore. I travel, I know, so differently from the way that I used to, and it really resonated with what you said about where do you get that sense of peace from anymore, because it's like I'm getting on an aeroplane, I'm going to do this, and I know I'm getting like the best food that maybe is coming into the island, and why can't everybody else have access to that? And it starts to cause stress and worry, and we save our money, we work so hard, all of us, and got to choose really carefully. So the easier you can make it, that we can make these choices, and the more, I mean, I don't think anyone should be able to call them 5-star anymore. Can't possibly be 5-star unless there's a nice green aspect to that. Thank you very much. You should have your stars removed otherwise.
There's a lot of debate about, you know, what should maybe be baked in, and I was moderating a greenwashing panel last year, and I had the chief sustainability writer for the Sunday Times on my panel, and he said people want cake, not lentils. And his point was this people actually want these experiences to be brought to them, and that we have created as an industry experiences in the right way. Now we're sort of coming to the end of the panel now, so I just would love to ask each of you, if we're looking for our key takeaways, we go back to the original question, what might the next plastic straw movement be? The debate is it may not be one thing. When we were talking earlier, Javon, you were talking about actually you don't think it should be one thing, because actually that's very distracting. So is it going to be a big natural disaster? Is it going to be a film that comes out, you know, like the Free Willy? Is it going to be, in the UK, we had a big post office scandal in terms of how postmasters were treated. It was in the media for years, and suddenly a TV series was made on it at the time that it was coming to a High Court decision, and the public pressure actually ensured that all the government compensated all the postmasters. So, you know, public opinion, it could be climate justice, it could be any one of these things. So I'll just go around to get your views on this before we finish up. Inge, I know you have to go at 6, so I'll start with you.
Okay. It's a hard question to answer, but I think the key thing we need to remember, 2 things. Companies don't change things, people do. And the second thing is we need to believe that we can change habits. You know, remember when we all use plastic bottles? Look at us here. We all have a refillable drinking bottle, no problem. Everybody carries them around. We don't do plastic bottles anymore. And there's other things, right? So we can change habits. And I think the biggest thing for companies like ours that is going to accelerate change is the demand signal. The consumers, if we offer them the choice, please, all of us are actually activists with our wallets, right? We are. So choose the responsible, make the responsible choices. When you travel, when you buy things, you could also choose not to buy them, but okay, when you buy things, when you enjoy your travel, make those responsible choices, because that demand signal will definitely accelerate things.
The only thing I would love to push back on a little bit on that is please make the greener choice the cheaper choice, because otherwise like I said, we all work so hard to spend the money, and if the greener choice is always the most expensive choice, it's preventing people from making that choice because they've got 4 kids and they can't afford it.
But I agree with that. I think what we need to figure out as companies is how to reward the good thing. And how do you reward the good thing? I don't think we need a race to the bottom, right? Because what you see in some sectors, call it fast fashion or very cheap airline tickets, a race to the bottom is not the right thing. But I do think, I'm with you, that we need to reward the good choices, not the wrong ones.
That's a great take up. Glenn?
You know, tourism can be a force for good when managed appropriately. And that's the key words, and we hear it, we've talked about it. And if I was to see 2 hot button items that could rise to the occasion that you talked about with pictures of straws and turtles, is we saw, you know, we're seeing it already in the media around what they call over-tourism, and not a good look for the brand of the sector. And now I think there's we need as an industry to reframe some of this thinking as well. It could be more what we could define as what overcrowding, because it's not just a tourism issue, but tourism is exasperating some of these destinations because those places that are great to visit are also great to live. And so when you have that imbalance and, you know, lack of management on the ground, tourism gets lumped into this. However, it is rising in media attention, and books are written on the topic, and I think the industry needs to take it very seriously, and it will have to, because in order to, and that's where this net positive again comes into play. If we're showing a responsible industry to the community, again, that we have the privilege to operate within, the trust between community and industry will be sound, and those things will become less and less because we have we're seen as a contributor. And I would say the other area that could rise to the occasion is human rights, particularly human rights, around modern slavery. We have a modern slavery issue in this industry. 10% of all modern slaves in the world work in our sector. That is not an acceptable number. And that's not just, that goes through the supply chain. And we have a big opportunity to make the change necessary, ensure the teams within these properties are well educated to understand what to watch for, what to ask, make sure we overcome those things, because we can actually make a big impact globally to reducing this, quite frankly, significant issue that permeates all sectors. But we have a real opportunity to change that. And that's the kind of thing that'll find its way to the front page of a newspaper as fast as you can, and impact brand reputation as well. So those are the things that will absolutely, I think, motivate industry to move forward.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And Jevon, actually, your generation are the future, also the future employees of the travel and hospitality industry. So as a last word from you.
Yeah, so I mean, I actually grew up sort of adjacent to the hospitality industry. My dad worked in hotels for many, many years, and so I'm like very familiar in that space. And I think that what is needed is definitely more than just one thing. It comes back to that idea of community and of intergenerational equity involved in this process. I think that too often when we look to these sort of really key moments or like this sensationalized view of things, we end up missing the bigger picture. Everyone's so focused in on this one thing, and then when we try to act towards that, everyone's action, everyone's financing, everyone's commitments are going towards this very tiny part of the issue, when if we collectively approach the issue, we can actually prevent that small thing from happening over and over again, right? And so a lot that's happening in terms of climate action work involves so many different, you'll find that this is such a far-reaching, it touches everything, right? This problem touches everything. So everyone is involved in the solution. Everyone should be involved in the solution, and we shouldn't put all of our eggs in one basket, so to speak, because if we do that, then we're gonna make great progress in one area and have serious collapse in others. So I wanna leave you all with that message that community action, these incremental steps that go into collective action is what's truly important for this work. Everyone has an opportunity to contribute, and everyone should have that opportunity, and we should focus on supporting especially those most excluded from having that opportunity to be in the rooms, to be able to produce actions that move us closer to this goal that we have set for ourselves in order to alleviate the pressure of the climate crisis. And so I wanted to leave you with that message. I will say too, just coming back to the idea of the hospitality industry, what we have to realize when we're going into these communities, when we're thinking about hospitality, we have to think about it from both sides of the coin, not just in terms of the consumers who are relying on this industry for holiday, but also of the people. And so I'm glad that you really touched on the issues, the true issues on maybe it's not even a coin, right? It's a sphere that has infinite amounts of sides, because you have the labor force that is included in this. You have the local population there. All of these different key stakeholders that are important to this conversation. I mean, imagine being a young child and your favorite spot on the beach ends up behind a resort that you can't afford to get into. And so we need to think about the relationships that this industry has with the locals, with the labor force throughout the entire supply chain and across the entire value chain, because those are the important conversations, those are the important relationships, because without those people, this industry would not be able to exist. So I want to leave with that message. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I mean, what an amazing panel. I think we could have chatted about this for another couple of hours, but there's lots more conversations, really important ones going on over the next few days. And we have Tourism Day tomorrow. This is a great Eve of Tourism Day panel to have. So, Florian, we're really looking forward to everything that's going to come out of tomorrow. And thank you, everyone, for joining us at the end of the day. Enjoy the rest of COP29. Thank you.